This starts part 3 of Castle Diary, the Journal of Tobias Burgess. April 11th, Wednesday. Watch my uncle practice for the joust today. He charged 11 times at a wooden ring hung from a tree and caught it on his lance 5 times. It takes much skill to lift the ring from its hook while galloping at full speed, and all who saw this agree it bodes well for the contest. April 22nd, the Lord's Day. Tomorrow begin the jousts. The host of noble knights who accepted my uncle's challenge are lodged at inns nearby or are encamped upon the fields outside the castle. 20 gaily colored tents sprouted in the night like mushrooms. Flying from lances planted in the ground, the knights' pennants look like flowers in a spring meadow. All the talk is of who shall prevail, and methinks the men of the castle guard place wages on the winner. I pray my uncle shall vanquish them all. April 23rd, Monday. This beat the feast day of St. George. The whole castle was astir well before sunrise, in preparation for the jousts. All the clashes were keenly fought, but I shall give account of my uncle's combat first. His opponent was Lord Sudbury. Even from the castle, and the village folk besides, gathered eagerly to watch their charge. After some ceremony, of which I shall tell later, the two knights trotted to opposite ends of the lists, which is what they call the strip of field where the combat takes place. When they were some 300 paces apart, they turned to face each other. The sunlight danced on their shiny helms, and on the bright colors of their families' arms blazoned on their shields and armor. On the command, "Lassire allure!" from a herald, both knights urged their horses forward. Pricked with sharp spurs, the snorted horses galloped faster and faster until they ran as swift as a March gale. Each knight aimed his lance at the shield of the other, and the watchers cried, "Huzzah!" when my uncle stayed on his horse and knocked Sudbury to the ground. 3 times my uncle toppled Sudbury. At their third meeting, though, the force of Sudbury's blow lifted my uncle too clean from his saddle. Those who watched gasped, "Alas!" in fear of my uncle's life, but he quickly rose to his feet and raised his iron glove to still the hubbub. Then, though he found that he could not raise the visor on his helm, so twisted it was from the fall, and when later the herald announced that my uncle was the victor, he was nowhere to be found. At length, a search of the castle discovered my uncle in the armory with his head laid on an anvil and the smith at work upon his helm. 'Tis surely a wonder the smith could remove it without harming a hair on my uncle's head. April 25th, Wednesday. There seems each day of the joust to be less sport than the day before, and more boring ceremony. Before combat begins each morn, the knights withdraw to their arming tents, where a squire helps him dress for the jousts. When they return, fully armed, there is much bowing low and making of speeches. When these dull preparations are complete, the heralds complain the names of the combatants, whose faces are hidden behind their shiny helms. Only then do the first 2 knights face each other and spur their horses on, and to my mind, the excitement that follows is over far too soon. April 26, Thursday. The jousting ends at last. I swear I should die of boredom if I were to listen to just one more speech. And after so many charges, all nights looked the same. If I had known it would be thus, I should have feigned illness on Monday and so escaped the ordeal. The new hose that I wear for this grand event is hot, for it clings to my legs as tightly as the skin clings to a sausage, and it is my duty to wait upon my aunt all day while she watches, which tires me much. Gilbert, Earl of Hertford, was this day mortally wounded in the joust, but when I talked of it with Mark, he only said, "Well, 'tis common." May 3rd, Thursday. Today was an Egypty day, and as all know, ill fortune follows any work that starts on these two unlucky days in the month. Our chaplain cautioned us that 'twas but a superstition from heathen Egypt. My uncle also told us we should not mind it. Later, though, I heard him tell a groom to put away the horses he had saddled, for only fools start journeys on Egypty days. May 14th, Monday. While we studied this forenoon, my cousin Abigail scratched a message in her wax tablet and passed it to me. Chaplain seized it, and now I must rise before dawn for a week and pray with him. This seems to me most unjust. I am punished, though I did no wrong. She did wrong, yet is not punished. May 27th, the Lord's Day. Yesterday was one of great celebration, for my uncle dubbed Simon a knight. Now he is 21. Simon has been full 7 years a squire, and has learned well the noble skills of knighthood. 2 days did Simon spend in prayer and fasting. On Friday night he slept not at all, but kept vigil in the chapel, praying until dawn. Then, at cockcrow, he bathed and dressed in a tunic of pure white, and attended mass. Only after this could he break his fast and venture out into the bailey for the armoring ceremony. First, my uncle dressed him in a coat of mail. Then Simon put on a gleaming helm and gilded spurs, and grasped a shield painted with the 2 burgess ravens. When this was done, he knelt to await the collie, the blow from my uncle's sword that would make him a knight. I thought this would be no more than a light tap, and was alarmed to see how heavy was the blow. But Simon was expecting it thus. He rose speedily, and swore a solemn vow to be a gallant and brave knight. Then all cheered as he mounted a fine Spanish palfrey and rode round the bailey. Later, there was feasting in the hall in Simon's honor. He will make a fine knight, and he is a good and kind cousin. June 9th, Saturday. The weather of late has been fearsome hot. We have not seen a cloud in weeks, and the ground is parched from want of rain. The river has sunk lower than any can remember, and green slime grows in that part of the moat where we usually swim. In the bailey, 2 men dig a new well. This is oft a wet and muddy task, but as there is little water to fill the well, the men can work dryfoot. June 13th, Wednesday. The garter-robes all reek. When I have need of them, I rush in nimbly, clutching my nose. I let fall my hose and pray that relief will be quick. This forenoon, when I sat upon the wooden seat, out from under it flew a black fly, so fat that at first I took it to be a wren. June 15th, Friday. This day, the gong farmer came from the village to work below the south wall. On this side of the castle, the garter-ropes empty down chutes into the moat. But because there has been no rain, the moat is sluggish in its flow, and everything that falls from the chutes stays where it drops. The gong farmer must clear not only these piles but other besides, for elsewhere in the castle the garter-ropes empty into pits, which must be cleaned to keep them sweet. So he uses the bathroom and it falls into the chute right over here. One of the garter-rope chutes is blocked, and the gong farmer must reach up inside the slimy pipe to unclog it. I would not do this job for all the king's gold. A humming black cloud hangs always above a gong farmer's head. Nose warns of his approach long before eyes espy him, and all ears are alert to the squeaking of his stinking cart. June 20th, Wednesday. Woke 2 nights past to the crashing of thunder. Now the rain does not stop, and we are awash with water. July 9th, Monday. Today at table, my aunt and uncle talk softly, mouth to ear. Isabel, my aunt's companion, has told me that a grand earl is coming to Strandsborough. He and his household are journeying north and will rest at the castle for at least 2 nights. I divined from their talk that my aunt and uncle are already planning a great banquet for the visit, even though 'tis some weeks away. July 14th, Saturday. This morn, my aunt told Isabel the reason for my uncle's keen preparations, and as she is friendly towards me, Isabel has entrusted me also with the secret. It seems that this great earl has the air of the king, and my uncle hopes to gain favor by welcoming him. Though my uncle's castle is grand, this earl has an estate many times larger. As there are pebbles on a beach, so he has gold, coins in equal numbers. July 20th, Friday. Isabel tutored me in table manners this day, though I needed it not. If you eat with the earl's household while they are here, said she, have a care to spit politely on the floor, not over the table. When I sniffed, she reminded me that if I should wipe my nose, it is only seemly to clean my hands on my clothes before touching food. July 27th, Friday. Towards the end of lessons today, we heard music from beyond the castle walls. Abigail and I made haste to find out whence had come this sound, and Simon told us that a band of players had passed by on their way to the village inn. They have come at my uncle's bidding for the banquet. These folk journey near and far, singing for their bread, and Simon has said he will take us to see them on the morrow. July 28th, Saturday. We found the players outside the village church, amusing a crowd of folk. The tumblers were most marvelous, and though one showed me how he walks on his hands, I should not master even one step. The minstrels sang of our king's victory in the west. Their verses brought news, too, of wars and great happenings in other lands. Most songs were jolly, though, and the crowd that was gathered there knew them of old and joined in with the choruses. A few folk dropped a farthing in a leathern hat, which the tumblers passed around. Others gave them bread or cheese, or brought a jug of ale to pay for this fine entertainment. July 30th, Monday. Today, two great ox carts trundled across the drawbridge to the kitchen yard. It took cook servants near half the day to unload and store all the provisions for the feast. The first cart bore barrels of wine and ale, so large they had to be rolled, for they could not be lifted. The second cart held all manner of meats and fish. One was most strange, with the tail of a fish, but the fur of a beast, and the face of a man, with whiskers complete. Later, cook told me 'twas some kind of sea beast. 'Tis fantastical, 'tis fantastical food we shall be eating when at last we sit down at our trenches. On Wednesday arrives the Earl, and on Thursday will be the banquet. April 7th, Tuesday. These 5 days past the whole household supped in hall in honor of our most noble guest, the Earl of Branstone. But straightway, after the feast, a fever afflicted me, and I was taken to lie in the great chamber, where my aunt and Isabel could watch over me. Though somewhat recovered, I am as weak as a kitten, and must stay in bed. So shall use this time to write of past events, for I fear I neglect my journal. The feast itself was the grandest thing I have ever seen. I could not help but stare at the many fine clothes and the gold and silver dishes. It was the food, though, that caused all present to gasp in amazement and marvel at the seemingly endless array of dishes. Here were majestic peacocks stuffed and roasted and proudly dressed in their feathers, and there the tiny tongues of larks, and fish of all kinds in plenty, baked and boiled, and platter after platter of roasted meats rich with sauces. The Earl had come from a host of servants who helped us bring out the dishes of each course. Each dish was carried in with much ceremony and presented to my uncle and the Earl before it was served. When the dishes were laid on the tables, we sat down to eat. There were a great many dishes I did not recognize. One seemed half bird, half beast. Mark named it. Cockatrice, 'tis called, but I know not where it is hunted. This made Humphrey laugh so hard that he almost spat out his food. Mark, he snorted, 'tis but a kitchen trick. First, they pluck a big fowl and cut it across the waist. Then, they take a piglet likewise, cut it in half, and sew top of one to bottom of the other. This cockatrice tasted good, but the noble Earl would not eat of it, or any other dish, before his butler had tasted, to see if it was fit for his master. I tire now, and so shall write more upon the morrow. April 8th, Wednesday. I have told how grandly we ate at the feast, but in a few ways this banquet was like ordinary fare. As usual, of course, we ate with knife, spoon, and fingers, and heaped our food upon trenches of hard, stale, cheap bread cut into thick slices. Drink, too, was much the same, but instead of the weak penny ale that is all we pages are normally allowed, the cupbearers poured us two-penny ale, which tasted far stronger. As it grew later, The ale loosened everyone's tongues, and Humphrey and Oliver began to make rude fun of me. When I sat with my legs apart, Oliver did point to where they joined beneath my thin hose. With much glee he chanted, "Let not thy privy members be laid open to be viewed. 'Tis most shameful and abhorred, detestable and rude." The tale of this rhyme I scarcely heard, for just then the minstrels blew a fanfare. Both they and the tumblers had been entertaining us all most skilfully, though some of the minstrel songs were saucy and made the ladies blush and bashfully studied the floor. The horns that drowned Oliver's words announced a subtlety. The subtleties were cunningly fashioned from sugar and almond paste, and were one of the delicacies that ended each of the four courses. They were goodly sweet to taste, though they did not look like food at all. One was molded as a hunting scene, and another as a mythic beast, but my favorite was one that looked like a great ship tossed at sea. After the fanfare, I remember no more, for this was when, or so I am told, I sickened and fell headlong to the floor. August 9th, Thursday. Because I am still weak and do not mend as quickly as my aunt would wish, my uncle has sent Simon to fetch a physician from Middlethrope. This town is but an hour's ride from Strandborough, though my uncle said that as he doubts I am dying, Simon need not rush to return before tomorrow. August 10th, Friday. The physician arrived today. Leech, he is called, and a name describes him well, for he is round and sleek, and I like him not. First, he had me relieve myself into a glass flask so he could study my water. He held it up to the window to judge the color, and then brought it to his nose. I guessed he would drink from it next, but instead, he set it down on the table. Then he took from his purse a folded piece of parchment and opened it, studied its mysterious signs and marks with great care. He asked when the sickness began, and for the day, hour, and place of my birth. From another chart, he worked out how stood the stars when I sickened, for this also affects his choice of cure. Then he announced, "The boy is melancholic, and earth fights fire for control of his body." This surprised me not a little, for I had thought it was the surfeit of food and ale I had swallowed at the banquet that ailed my gut. Finally, he added that I should be bled, but as this was not a favorable time for such a task, he would return, if needed, in a few days. April 12th, the Lord's Day. Still, I am confined to my bed in the great chamber. When I tried to ride this morn, the room swung so widely about me that I felt sick to my stomach again, and my aunt straightway made me lie back down. Today, my aunt received a visitor. This woman, who is called Lady Cecily, is my aunt's friend and lives in the neighboring manor of Littlethrope. She brought with her a younger sister, Jane. Together, the four women whiled away the day in working at their needlepoint and playing chess and backgammon. Mostly, though, they gossiped of the banquet and of the noble knights they knew. Later, Jane and Isabel tried to teach me backgammon, but my brain was too muddled to make much sense of it. When they went to eat in the hall, Mark sneaked in to see how I did, which cheered me greatly. April 13th, Monday. Dr. Leech came again today, and after much paring and prodding, he declared once more that I must be bled to release the ill humors or fluids that are in my body. Grasping hold of my arm, he straightway chose a vein and opened it with a knife. He told my aunt that this would let out the black bile, of which I have too much, and that as the moon is nearly full, this is a good time for bloodletting. At length the leech bandaged up my arm, and taking out a piece of parchment, wrote the letters of my name on it. Then he gave each of the letters a number, summoned them all together, and announced, "The boy shall live!" At this, my aunt near swooned with joy, and paid the fat doctor well for his work. But I feel sicker than ever, and my arms hurt abominably. April 16th, Thursday. Today I am much mended, though my arm still pains me not a little. I cannot think how bleeding someone helps to cure them. 'Tis my belief I am recovered in spite of Dr. Leach's treatment rather than because of it.